Albatross is a Najad 390. She's a center cockpit boat designed specifically for ocean sailing. We're in the process of updating and recommissioning her systems. Her cockpit is comfortable and secure. We have found the original steering wheel encroaches on the aft portion of the cockpit when one is moving around. Our solution is to install a folding wheel to improve access when we're at anchor or in port.
It's an overcast day and it's very humid. So we have the cockpit area here. This is the autopilot control, engine instruments, cockpit locker, obviously the wheel. Following a bit of chaos with the airline, because I had built this beautiful shipping box for the folding wheel, they felt that they needed to open it up and inspect everything, which resulted in this box not coming with our luggage. But here it is 3 days later, and we finally have received it, and I'm getting ready to start unpacking the folding wheel. Now these wheels are not cheap, so I spent a little bit of extra money building this box to ship it. Comes in a cardboard box, but I just didn't trust the airlines with that for fear they might somehow damage the wheel. Anyway, it's almost ready to come out of the box now. It'll make a nice replacement for this fixed wheel. The fixed wheel takes an awful lot of space in the cockpit, and the other issue with it is that it actually overlaps the cockpit seat by a little bit. So with the new folding wheel, it'll make it a little easier moving around here in the cockpit. Changing out the wheel is a pretty straightforward procedure. Simply loosen the center nut here. In our case, we use a wind channel. Once we've removed this nut, the wheel just pulls straight back and off at the shaft. It is necessary to pay attention to where the key is. On our particular wheel, the key is offset, I don't know, what is that, about 30 degrees from straight up. The Lewmar wheel, as shipped, has the key going straight up and down. So what we'll need to do is remove these 6 fasteners, rotate this 1 notch, and then reassemble it, and everything will be nice and square and straight. These are 5mm for those who are curious. Once you've taken the centerpiece out, rotated it to the correct position, it's a simple matter of putting all the fasteners back in and installing the wheel. Alright, let's slide this baby on. There we go. Going to put a dab of Loctite on just to make sure that that nut does not unexpectedly come loose. I say a dab of Loctite. That's a dab of Loctite in a tube that's been opened. Okay, trying that dab of Loctite again. There we go. That's just for peace of mind. You know darn good and well if I don't put that on there, that nut is going to fall off at some point in time. And give it a bit of a snug down here. And we're good. So now we can fold the wheel out. And in the out position, it is the same width as it was before. But the nice thing about it is we can fold it in when we're here in the cockpit. And we get a lot more space over here on the side to move around. And I have to remember to lock the wheel off too. There we go.
should be a big improvement as far as accessing the space in the cockpit when we're at anchor. When a boat builder builds a boat, they need to factor in several different things, and that's what determines the diameter of the wheel on a boat. The rudder size, the size of the quadrant are key factors in determining what diameter of wheel one is going to have. That's why on so many of the newer boats you see these large wheels. That's to compensate for rudder size and quadrant size. The water tank gauge for Star White's freshwater tank was not working. After troubleshooting the problem, I determined that the tank's sending unit was inoperative. The freshwater tank is located under the cabin sole at the bottom of the companionway steps. Accessing a tank sending unit requires removing 2 cabin sole boards, then removing a dozen screws, attaching an inspection plate to the top of the tank, and then removing the tank sending unit from that inspection plate. This old mechanism is completely corroded in place, which would explain why it's not working. Well, I was fortunate enough to find a new sender, and we've now got everything assembled and ready to reinstall it in the tank. This is an exciting moment. And the new water tank sensor is fully installed. One more thing off the to-do list. With the tank sending unit installed, the gauge at the nav station was now working fine, and I was able to cross one more thing off my long work list. The pressure water pump had started operating somewhat intermittently. If I whacked it with a hammer, it would restart for a little while. As expected, the freshwater pump has failed. Fortunately, we did bring a spare with us, so I have now cleaned out the cockpit locker so that I have room to climb down deep inside here and replace the freshwater pump. So, deep down in the sub-basement is the freshwater pump. Fortunately, it's a fairly straightforward operation to replace it. Pull off a couple of hose clamps, unscrew it, pull a couple wires out. Should be straightforward. That said, I am deep down in the cockpit locker, and it's hot down here. I think the outside air temperature is, I don't know, in the upper 70s, but it is hot and muggy down inside the locker here. But we're going to wade into this anyway. Well, new pump is now installed, and we've got pressure water again. It's time to close up the cockpit locker and put everything back. The hot water tank had quit working, and I anticipated having to replace the thermostat or the heating element. It turned out all I needed to do was turn the electrical power back on. We've made a couple of minor improvements in the aft stateroom here, in that we've added fans on both sides. Originally the boat had some brass lamps mounted there, but they were pretty much useless and they just shined down onto the countertop. So elected to take them out and replace them with a couple of fans. We do have reading lamps at well, we'll call it the head of the berth, which is actually the stern of the boat. But the fans should help quite a bit. We did put one of the reading lamps that had been over here, over on the bulkhead here, just above the dressing seat in the aft stateroom. So that makes a comfortable little nook to sit and read.
Albatross's original owner specified that a clock be installed up here on the bridge deck area. Personally, I don't have much use for it, and fortunately it has ceased to function. So I'm going to be removing it, and temporarily I'm going to put a cover over that spot, but eventually we'll replace this entire panel, and there'll be no evidence that there ever was a clock there. There we go. Ooh, those wires are probably hot, so I'm going to need to seal them off before we cut anything. Well, I've cut the power supply, and I've cut the wires for the light to the clock, taped them off and marked them so that somewhere down the line, when I'm wondering what in the world these wires are for, there'll be a note to remind me. Now it's just a matter of putting everything back together. I cut out this piece of white acrylic when I was home in the shop and brought it along with me. I had to kind of guess on sizing because I neglected to measure, but turns out I've made it plenty big enough, so it'll just fit just like that. It'll cover up that big hole until such time as I can make a new panel. So there we have it. A nice plastic cover where there used to be a non-working clock. What I'm going to do is replace these teak panels. There's one on either side here, and I think what I'm going to redo them is with probably an off-white starboard, which will brighten things up a little bit, and it's one less piece of maintenance to have to varnish. But at the moment I don't have the starboard or the tooling on board the boat to do that. I think prior to going home from this trip to the boat, I will make a couple of cardboard templates, and I can cut out the starboard pieces back home in the shop and bring them with me on my next visit to Albatross.
There are still many projects to be completed on Albatross. The Admiral would like to replace all of the upholstery inside. We need to order new canvas for the mainsail sail pack, the binnacle cover, and the spray hood. I want to move the repeater that is in the aft stateroom to the nav station, where I believe it will be of more value to me.